Students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of British Columbia, Canada. I hope everybody is having a good week, staying healthy, staying strong, staying positive. In this class, everyone, we are looking at an IELTS reading section, and we're going to discuss answering those questions correctly, what strategies you need to follow to get the right answers within the given amount of time. This is a members chat class. Everybody is, of course, welcome to watch. There's lots of learning to be had. We will have an all chat class coming up in 90 minutes for listening parts 1 and part 2. To become a member of our channel, simply click the join button next to the subscribe button. If you do not see that button, then just send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com and I will give you more information on how to become a member. This lesson, everyone, is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Check us out there. For the general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. I'll quickly show you those websites while we wait for a few more of your fellow students to join in. Welcome Arda, our member. I saw a couple more members joining in, and welcome Carolina, our moderator. Good to have you all in this session. This is our academic IELTS website here at aehelp.com. You can click that big red button to join our premium package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. It really doesn't cost very much money, especially compared to the IELTS exam. So it's well worth it to check out these materials so that you can maximize your score. We are a British Council IELTS Test Registration Center and certified agents. For general IELTS, it's the same idea. It's the green background. You can click this big red button to join us there. Again, it's a one-time payment. You get to use it until you pass your IELTS exam and even beyond. So it's a good investment. You can download our apps, Academic IELTS Help and General IELTS Help, and you can link your apps to your web accounts also. Okay, let's get into today's reading. So here we go. This reading is section 3 of a general IELTS exam. This is actually coming from our general IELTS tests. However, it's important to note that reading section 3 of the general IELTS is basically the same as the reading passages of the academic IELTS. It's one long passage, about a page and 2/3 long, about 700 words long, followed by about 12 to 14 questions. So for general IELTS students, it's good to do some academic IELTS reading passages as well to challenge yourself for section 3 of the general IELTS exam. You're basically looking at the same kind of materials and the same level of difficulty. Hi Ajmira, hi Rashika, welcome Andri. Good to have you all on board. So let's take a look at this passage. I really like this one. I like the content of this passage as well. It's quite interesting. I can make it a bit bigger for us so we can really read well. Okay, so here, the first step, members, as I often say, is just to look at the title. The title is the brief, concise summary of the topic and the main idea of the reading passage. So it's very important to read it. Don't skip it. Some students try to save time by skipping the title. That's a bad idea. That does not save you time, but that will lead to more difficulty with comprehension. So to answer correctly, read the title first and foremost and think about it. So think about what that could mean, okay? All right, so here we go, members. Let's get into this. Music and technology. Are we really hearing the artist? Now, pay careful attention when the title is a question mark. That clearly means the author is not just answering this question, but is really challenging you, the reader, to think about this, to think about this idea, okay? So music and technology. What do you think that means, music and technology? So when you hear those two words together, what comes to mind? Okay, so again, you should take about a minute to a minute and a half looking at the title and the questions before you really get into reading the actual passage. And in order to get a great mark in the reading section, and I'm speaking about band 7, 8, 9 marks, you have to read the whole passage, especially all of the passages in academic reading and reading section 3 in the general, okay? In the general IELTS exam for section 1, 2, you can use skimming and scanning a bit more because they're very short passages, so that will be a little bit more efficient. But skimming, scanning is not efficient. Searching for answers in the text is not efficient for section 3 of general IELTS, okay? All right, so Carolina says the studio artist's recording. Andre says technology helps to hear better and to create a beautiful voice. Yeah, Andre, include those keywords like to create a beautiful voice, okay? Sammy says maybe something about the developments in the music industry. Okay, so again, what do the words music and technology mean together? So we have to think about that. So again, visualize. So one way to do this really well is to think about your own experiences. So think about, when do you hear music together with technology? Okay, what comes to mind when you hear these? First thing that comes to mind often for me when I hear these words together is EDM. Anybody know what this acronym means, EDM? So what does EDM mean? I'm sure some of you know. It's a genre of music, and we just shorten it to EDM. I like EDM. When I go running, I listen to some EDM to keep me going as well. Arda says it's electro. Yeah, I guess that's another way to say it, Arda, in a short way. It's electronic dance music. Yeah, so when I think of electronic dance music, right? There we go. Nick Hill says it's electronic dance music. Same with Carolina. Good. Yeah, when I think of electronic dance music, I think of technology as technology creates new sounds, manipulates the instruments and the voice of the singers or the artists. Okay? So this is the kind of thinking that you want to develop when you hear or when you read words like music and technology in the title of a passage, okay? Hopefully everybody sees that, yeah, members? So you kind of see that. So music and technology, I think modern day, I think, okay, well, what comes to mind when I think about this? Electronic dance music. Well, how does technology create or influence electronic dance music? There's definitely a lot of original sounds. The bass sound in electronic dance music, that boom, 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 that's very different, right, than traditional classical music. And of course, the voice of the singers, you often hear it being manipulated as well. Andre says, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so hopefully when you read a title like this, then these thoughts come to mind quickly. And of course, you have to be calm and confident in the reading section of the IELTS for your brain to function well to come up with these ideas. So just stay focused, breathe, be yourself, and let your mind do the work, okay? Are we really hearing the artist? That's the second part of this question. And of course, now that I've thought about EDM, I can say, well, not really, right? So I actually answer this question, okay, before I begin reading. When the title asks a question, it's a good idea to answer that question, okay? Definitely try to answer it. Okay, so in this case, the answer would be no. Often the artist's voice is not really theirs. It is being manipulated to sound different or sound better for the listener. Okay? So again, we want to come up with these ideas quickly. Okay? You read the title, you visualize, you think about this, and this should be happening in a matter of seconds. The IELTS exam, not just the academic, but even the general, is testing your ability to think in English, not just use English, to think in English. It is an English proficiency exam, not an ESL exam. Okay? Keep that in mind. All right. So we've got an idea of the title. We're visualizing. Maybe we're a singer. We're making some electronic dance music ourselves. A lot of people can do that now at home with their computers. And then we look at the questions. Okay. So our first set of questions is a matching content to the passage. So which paragraph contains the following information? All right. As soon as you see this kind of question, you should realize that skimming and scanning will not work. Why, members? Why would you realize right away that when you see this kind of a question, which paragraph contains the following information? Simply put, skimming, scanning will not work for you to finish this passage on time and to get correct answers. Why? Okay, so, and you should be reminded of this, okay? And then it says here too, note by the way, you may use any letter more than once, which means some of these statements will possibly come from the same paragraph as another. Yeah, so Nick Hill says, well, the reason why it won't work is because these statements are going to be paraphrased and they're not going to be in the same sequence as the passage or in the same order. Yeah, absolutely, Nick Hill. So for all I know, this first question, 28, an example of an imperfect artist, could be coming from near the end of the passage. So if I'm trying to skim for, let's say, the words imperfect artist, number one, I might not even see these words because the passage can use different words for this idea. And I might have to skim read most of the passage, if not all of it, to even find this answer. So that would take even somebody who is a very quick reader possibly minutes to do. You can't spend minutes on one question, okay? So Nick Hill's absolutely right, okay? You cannot skim or scan for these. And so what you want to do with these is you want to review them before the passage, read over them quickly, and at home, you want to paraphrase them, okay? You want to see them in different ways in your mind. So for example, an example of an imperfect artist, you might paraphrase with something like a case of a singer who is flawed. Okay, to have a flaw means that you're no perfect or you're not perfect. So to be flawed, okay, so a case of a singer who is flawed, okay, who doesn't sing with a perfect voice. All right. At home, when you're doing this type of question, in fact, when you're doing just about any question for the IELTS reading, paraphrase with pen and paper, or of course on your computer, right? In the official exam, you don't have time for that. So you have to train your mind and you have to paraphrase mentally in your mind as you're doing that, okay? Let's try a couple of these, members. So the usage of tone correction software for the aesthetic experience. So try to paraphrase this as best as you can. And if you don't know words like aesthetic, okay, at home, use a dictionary, use a thesaurus, find a different word so you learn these words while you're studying. Okay. You can paraphrase with synonyms. You can paraphrase with grammar. You can paraphrase with expressions. You can paraphrase by giving a definition of a word. Okay. Sammy says a possibility of an improper musician. Improper would not be a good paraphrase for imperfect. That has a different meaning, Sammy, but it's a good try. Okay. All right. Nick Hill says utilizing the autocorrection technology for creating a beautiful voice. Okay, yeah. So using autocorrection tech, I'm not going to keep writing technology, tech to create a beautiful voice. Yeah. Hopefully that all got on screen there. Yeah. Okay. Andre says doing a lot of work to sound perfect. Yeah, those work. Okay, so again, your paraphrasing here doesn't have to be 100%. You want to have about 90% accuracy if possible when you're doing this at home. All right, and it will definitely improve your overall English to do this kind of paraphrasing as well. Sammy says the utilization of sound modification technology for an attractive vocal sound. Not attracting vocal, attractive. Yeah, attractive and beautiful, those are good paraphrases, Sammy. Not attracting, but attractive. Okay, those are a little bit different words. Very good. Okay. Eliminating mistakes is the goal of humanity. Give me a paraphrase for that one. So, eliminating mistakes is the goal of humanity. Okay. Very good so far. I'm very impressed with the paraphrasing. Students, keep that going, okay? Rashika says the utilizing of sound creation applications to produce beautiful sounds. Rashika, instead of appliances, I would use the word applications, but you're close, okay? All right, Arda. Removing failure is the target of human beings. Yeah, so removing failure is the target of human beings instead of human beings instead of humanity, but you can even say man. Sometimes we paraphrase it as man. So removing flaws or removing failure, not fails but failure, okay, is the target of man. And when we say man in this context, we don't mean men like males, but we mean all of humanity. Okay, so it refers to men and women as well. Okay, so you can use it in that sense. So removing failure is the target of man. Okay, man refers to all humans. You see it in humanity as well, right? So a lot of people think that man only refers to men as the male gender, but it's not completely true, okay? The root word of humanity is man. So man, woman, all human beings, okay? Nick Hill says eradicating errors is the priority of humans, okay? Or the main priority of humans. That's another nice way to paraphrase. Akshay says reducing mistakes is the motto of human beings. Yeah, that works as well, Akshay. So saying that it's the motto, meaning the prime goal, yeah, that works, okay. Sammy says removing flaws is the main aim for individuals. That works as well, okay. So beautiful. You can see, members, that there are lots of ways to paraphrase, and I challenge you to paraphrase in different ways as much as possible. So when you really get deep into your English studies, you can actually go through these 2 or 3 times and paraphrase them different ways each time. So paraphrase them in different ways each time. Okay? All right, so that's your goal. That's what you want to do. That's what you need to practice before you sit your exam. Number 31, A key moral difference is the usage of tone correction software. Let's just go with these now. So I don't want to paraphrase all of them because then we're going to take too much time. We won't get to reading. So a sports analogy, an example from athletics. Okay. Lack of clarity about what a concert goer is really hearing. A misunderstanding about what the audience in the concert is really listening to. The origins of tone correction software. The beginnings of music technology applications. Okay, so you want to kind of go through them like that in the actual official exam. You want to have quick paraphrasing in your head. Very nice. Thumbs up to all of you members. You're doing a great job today, really are. And I don't give out compliments when they're not deserved, so you can give yourself a pat on the back. You're doing great. All right, so now we get to our next set of questions. And in this case, right away we can see that they're multiple choice. It says questions 35 to 37, so we've got 3 questions here. You have to choose A, B, C, or D, so you've got 4 options. 1 will be correct, 3 will be wrong. Again, you realize, okay, well, skimming and scanning is not going to be effective for this either. There's too much content there. I have to read, I have to understand, I have to choose the correct answer. Okay, so by this point in this passage, you should have a lot of clarity that this is not a passage where skimming and scanning is going to help you, and it will be really frustrating to run out of time. Okay, so don't do that. All right, Mohit, still paraphrasing. Fantastic. Eradicating faults is the main aim of man. Very good. All right, so here for multiple choice, we just focus on the question itself, okay? We do not focus on the choices. And the reason for that is because we don't know which answer is correct, and reading these answers is wasting time because 3 of them are wrong. And it's also creating confusion because 3 of them are wrong, right? Yeah. So we only focus on the question. So we see the question, and of course it's in question form. You have the question mark, right? So what you're doing for these at home is you're again paraphrasing on paper. In the exam, you're doing this in your head, and you're changing the question to a statement, okay? Because the passage isn't going to give you a question. It's not going to ask you, oh, what does tone correction software do? You will not see this in the passage, okay? You will see an answer to this in the passage. So you have to figure out what the answer is going to read as, okay? So paraphrase it, and paraphrase it in a statement form, okay? So how could you paraphrase this into a statement form? What does tone correction software do? Paraphrase it and make it into a statement instead of a question. So Nick Hill says the function of music modification software is, or applications or programs, right? Instead of applications, by the way, everyone, it's kind of a more modern term. Not so long ago, a few years back, before mobile phones got super popular, people actually used software and programs more. Those 3 words are almost perfect synonyms. So software, program, and application. Okay. Application is popular these days because of mobiles. We say apps all the time to mean applications. But back in the day, traditionally, we called applications programs and software. Okay, so keep that in mind. So Nick Hill says the function of music modification programs are ... Right. Absolutely. Akshay says the main use of tone correction software is to. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what you're doing. Okay, so you're changing this question into a statement and then thinking about what that could be. That already gets your mind moving around the answer to focus on that. Okay, and this is happening quickly. So this whole reading the title, thinking about it critically, visualizing it, reviewing the questions, it shouldn't take you more than about 3, maybe 4 minutes before you actually read the passage. Okay, so here we have another one. How did rudimentary usages of the software differ from modern ones? Okay, the original use of the software was different from the modern application by. All right. So again, I'm paraphrasing here. You should try the same. So try to paraphrase in your head quickly. Okay. Carolina says the program that corrects the voice makes. Absolutely. That works very well, Carolina. Good. Very good. Okay. And then 37 is how do artists like T-Pain and Cher use the software? So the artist T-Pain and Cher uses autocorrection or voice correction software too. Okay, good. All right. We've got those. Let's keep going. Obviously, we're going to have a few more questions because there are 40 questions for every reading section. So here we have questions 38 to 40, and these are a true, false, not given. True, false, not given questions, don't read them before the passage. They're confusing. You have no idea whether they're true or false or not given. So there's no use to read them before the passage. They're not going to help you understand the passage because they could be off topic. They could make you even more confused. So just leave them until the end of the passage. In the computer-based exam, that's very, very easy to do because they're drop down, so you don't click on them. Okay, in the paper-based exam, you just have to ignore reading them or looking at them. Okay, cool. So at this point, we can now go back and read the passage. Okay, when we're reading the passage, we become a part of the passage. We focus on the information. We all want really good IELTS scores. So we have to be interested, even if music is not our forte, if it's not our main hobby, that's totally fine. In the IELTS exam, you have to be the musician. You have to be interested in music. You are now a singer, songwriter, composer. Okay, so you become a part of this passage. Okay, so let's begin reading. Everybody is good to go? You're all ready to read? Yes? I see a thumbs up from Andre. And read with me here, students. So let's read together. Okay, don't just listen to me read because then all you're doing is a listening exercise, which is okay. We'll be doing listening in the next class, but you should be reading, okay? All right, there we go. Everybody's like, yeah, I'm good to read. Okay, so let's do it. Let's read together. Okay, here we go. So the pursuit of perfection is one of the driving forces behind humanity. But is perfection really the right goal? Can perfection even be a bad thing? Some music critics think so. Through the use of software that automatically corrects incorrect notes, today's musical artists are no longer giving us a real version of their voice. We hear the idealized or perfect version of their voice. Driven by the quest for perfection, it seems we may have lost some of the soul and humanity of previous musical eras. Okay, good. So that's about the speed that you want to read. You don't need to read faster than that in the IELTS, okay? If you can read that fast, you are doing a great job. Please don't read super fast, because if you read super fast but you have no idea what you're reading, there's no point in reading. Okay, the goal of reading is to understand what you're reading. It's not to look at all the letters and words. Okay. All right. So when you read a paragraph, you should think and train yourself to think about what this paragraph is saying. So what is the main idea of this paragraph? Okay. So what is this paragraph about? Okay. So in your words, if I ask you after reading this paragraph, what is it about? What would you tell me? What is this paragraph about? Okay. So paragraph A. Andre says it's losing the original sound. Okay. Yeah, I think that's part of it. Anybody else? What do you think? What would be the best, most complete, clear answer for this? Okay. So practice this at home. This is very important practice for reading comprehension. And you can practice this in partners. Read the same passage. After each paragraph, answer this question, compare it, and see if your answers match. Okay? Maybe members in our Discord group, we can do this kind of exercise for reading where everybody reads the same passage and writes a list of what the paragraph is about for each of those paragraphs, and then you can compare it and debate and argue who's got the best answer. Okay? It's a good idea. So check that out and try it in the discourse group. We can set that up. Okay? All right. Akshay says the paragraph is about a big difference between music in the past and nowadays. Arda says singers don't use their real voice anymore. Carolina says modern music is missing the originality of the artist. Fudhill says music doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. I would say pursuing perfection in music may be the wrong goal. Okay. So it's about the pursuit of perfection, and specifically in music, it may be the wrong goal. Okay, that would be my summary of this. Okay. So pursuing perfection, especially in music, may be the wrong goal, right? That's how I would do it, right? Dibarak, I haven't read your response yet in the chat, but looking at it, it's looking way too long, okay? When you answer the question, what is this paragraph about? You should not have to use more than about 8 to 10 words to summarize it, okay? Nick Hill, I love it. So look at how nice and clear Nick Hill responds to this. Nick Hill says, perfection is not always necessary for music. Okay, very good. I like it, Nick Hill. I honestly think that yours is even more concise than mine. Okay, perfection is not always necessary in music. That's a brilliant, simple, beautiful, and to the point, Nick Hill. Very good. Okay, so that's what you want to do after each paragraph. And by doing that, that will really help you to answer those first questions. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's keep going. Here we go. Music from 50 years ago. Okay, again, read with me. Let's start one more time. Music from 50 years ago, even by the greatest singers, is riddled with small errors, flat notes, poorly matched harmonies, and other imperfections give the work a certain human quality. But in the 1990s, computer software was developed that could correct these small imperfections. It would take a flat note and raise its pitch to where it was supposed to be. Likewise, a sharp note was lowered to its appropriate pitch. In its early years, this automatic tuning software was rather rudimentary and resulted in an artificial and electric sounding tone. It was very obvious to the listener that they were hearing an edited human voice. Soon, however, the software was developed to the point a song could be corrected and the audience would not know. Okay, so here I would say this paragraph is about the early days of sound correction software. Okay, early days of sound correction software. Okay, so let's keep going. We want to get to the questions for sure, so I'm just going to keep going. But again, I challenge you to do this. What is this paragraph about for each paragraph at home when you're doing these studies, okay? Or when you're working on your reading comprehension. C, some artists use the tone correction software itself for aesthetic value. That is to say, they believe the resulting sound of rudimentary and electronic sounding corrections is aesthetically pleasing. Most music critics do not have a problem with this type of music. Cher, the original artist to use correction software, successfully used it in this fashion. The American hip-hop artist T-Pain is notorious for using the software for this aesthetic effect. Okay, so this paragraph is about using voice correction software for aesthetic effect. So for making the music sound different or more beautiful, but without hiding the voice of the author. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Andre, yeah, we're going to answer now. That's why we're reading, so we can get to the questions and answers. So here we go. So why is it okay for artists like Cher and T-Pain to use the software, but wrong for others? The answer is that Cher and T-Pain are not trying to deceive anyone. They are not presenting their songs as the product of their voices alone. Other artists, however, do present automatically corrected songs as their own. This is morally problematic, since they are intentionally deceiving their audience. It is this deception that is one of two major points against the usage of this software. Okay, so what is this paragraph about? It's about two different ways to use autocorrection software. One is okay, the other is morally wrong, because it tricks the listener. You're being tricked into thinking you're hearing the artist, but you're not. The second point against using the software is that it actually has the opposite effect to that intended. Rather than reaching perfection, it has gone too far and become robotic. One can compare analogously to a game of football. People watching football and other sports love to see great players play and perform incredible athletic feats. We love greatness, but we do not desire perfection. Nobody wants to watch a football game played with perfect football playing robots. The idea is absurd because it removes the humanity of the sport. And so it is with music. In making a song sound perfect, the singer is turned into something of a robot, devoid of all musical soul. The small imperfections are what give great songs their individual character. Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones, for example, is notoriously prone to off-key notes. But this is part of who he is as a singer and what makes him great. An automatically corrected Mick Jagger would, the critics say, be inferior to the real thing. Okay, so what is this paragraph about? It's the second point against autocorrection software in music, which is it makes music actually less desirable. So we don't like it as much. We like mistakes as humans. Okay? It makes the songs and the singers sound original. Okay, F. We have no way of knowing which artists use the software and which ones do not. Unfortunately, this software can now be used instantaneously and as such can be used in live performances. The next time you attend a concert, you might wonder to yourself if you are really hearing the artist or if you're actually hearing a kind of robot. Furthermore, you may lament the fact that if the artist is indeed using the software, you may be missing out on what might be an incredibly soulful, if imperfect, human voice. So the conclusion says that in modern times, we can correct songs and singers in real time, and this might actually be a bad development. right? It might be taking away from what would otherwise be a much better concert. Okay, so now we have these paragraphs in our head. We've gone through them. A, B, C, D, E, F. So there were 6 paragraphs. If we don't remember the exact sequence or the exact place, that's okay, as long as we have most of these kind of main ideas. Okay? So let's go to this one here, number 28. An example of an imperfect artist. So this is a who, right? And you shouldn't take too much time on this now that you've read the passage. And as long as you understood about 80-90%, you should be good to go. So who was the example of the imperfect artist? That sounds great. One of the most famous rock and roll singers of all time. Nikhil says that's E. Okay, Nikhil. I think you're right, which means that it's coming in paragraph 5, right? This is why we don't skim and scan. Okay. Who was it? I can never spell. I think I can spell his name, but yeah. So who was it? He shares the abbreviation of his name with another very famous pop singer. Yeah, very good, Fadil. Fadil says it was Mick Jagger, a very famous Mick Jagger. Right. There's that whole piece about Mick Jagger being really off key when he's singing, but that's what makes his performances and his songs so incredible, right? So Mick Jagger, yeah, not Cher, Carolina, not Cher. Okay, Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones, if you're not familiar with the Rolling Stones, check it out. I mean, they're like the father of rock and roll music, some would say, or rock and roll music bands, okay? And they're still alive and still doing music, which is absolutely incredible. Okay, so, and yeah, I believe you're right, Nikhil. I believe that was E. I remember it was very close to the end. Because I know that it's Mick Jagger, it's very easy for me to look for his name if I have to check that. Okay, I'm pretty sure it was E as well. Okay, there it is. Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones. Okay, so E it is. And again, when you do it in the right way, you'll come up with answers very quickly. Okay, so that's E. We move on. Number 29, the usage of tone correction software for the aesthetic experience. Okay, so again, I remember that it mentioned 2 different artists that use this tone correction software to make the music kind of sound more attractive, but not really hiding their voice. Carolina says, I think that's C. So that was Cher and T-Pain, right? Cher and T-Pain were the examples that were given there. And look at all of you saying C or D. Yeah, I remember it was C or D. It was the first point, or the early point. So C or D. And then I remember it was Cher and T-Pain. Excuse me. So here's Cher, C. Cher, using it for aesthetic value. Okay. So I'm confident that it's C. I put in the answer, and then I move on. Okay, very good. Number 30, eliminating mistakes is the goal of humanity. That should be a quick, easy one. You should not have to search for this. If you're searching or if you're skimming and scanning for this type of question in the IELTS exam when you're doing a passage like this, you are in trouble. Okay, that should be, this question should take you about 2 seconds to answer. Okay, so number 30, eliminating mistakes is the goal of humanity. Which one was that? So Carolina says E. Nikhil says E as well. I disagree. Think about the passage. Think about if you're the author and you're writing this passage. It's definitely not E. Okay. You're kind of thinking right, but in a wrong way. Okay, you're thinking towards yeah, Sammy, A, be confident. Very good. Yeah, that's how the passage starts, right? It says in the introduction, it says people want to eliminate mistakes, but that's not always the right idea, especially not in music, right? So A is the right answer for 30. Absolutely. Okay. You should not have to think about that. Okay, that should be in your head. Remember, we said that, right? So it's in when we did our paraphrasing here. Pursuing perfection, especially in music, may be the wrong goal, right? So that's the paragraph that deals with that concept. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving along. A key moral difference in the usage of tone correction software. So here for 31, I remember that the moral difference is Cher and T-Pain use autocorrection software to make the sound different, but they don't hide it. They don't trick you into thinking that it's their voice. If you want an example of that, listen to the song by Cher, which is titled, Do You Believe in Life After Love? Do you believe in life after love? And you will hear exactly what this question is talking about here, okay? But some people, they actually use the correction software to hide their original voice, right? So there's a paragraph that talks directly about that. Now, I remember that C was about Cher and T-Pain, so a good logical approach would be to go back to C and see if it's maybe that one. So it says C, some artists use tone correction software for aesthetic value. Okay, so it's talking about that aesthetic value. Let's see what happens next. So D, why is it okay for artists like Cher and T-Pain, but wrong for others? Okay, so right for some, but wrong for others. That's your moral dilemma. So Arda, Sammy, Rashika are thinking ahead of me. Very good. You know you're on the right path when you're thinking ahead of the instructor. And that's exactly what you're doing, Arda and Sammy and Rashika. So very, very good. Yeah, so D it is. Okay. All right. A sports analogy. So it's a comparison for sports. I remember this one. What was the sports analogy? So Carolina, Nikhil, Rashika, what was the sports analogy that was given to us by this author, which makes you really think about the goal of perfection, where the author was like, well, nobody would really want to watch this. Maybe we watch one game, but that would be about it, I think. I think one game, everybody would be kind of like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But 2 games, yeah, not so much. Yeah, football. Carolina's going with the North American approach. Soccer, yeah, same idea. So football, soccer, the robots playing football, right? It's the pursuit of perfection. Right, and which paragraph was that? The robots playing football. That was kind of later on in the passage, I believe. So yeah, Sammy says robotic football. Absolutely. Or for those of you in India, you might want to think of robotic cricket, where everybody's playing the perfect cricket game. That would be kind of weird. So that's coming later on. Okay. Here we go. E, right? So E is talking about the football playing robots. That's the same one that talks about Mick Jagger, right? So here's that double use of the same paragraph. Okay. So the sports analogy is E. Okay. Number 33, lack of clarity about what a concert goer is really hearing. I think this one should be pretty quick. This is kind of like number 30. You should not have to go back for this to understand it and to answer it. So number 33, lack of clarity about what a concert goer is really hearing. What is that one? Yeah, very good, Sammy. F. Carolina, F. D. Barack, F. Very good. Sammy says whatever the last paragraph was, F. Yeah. Sammy, if you can't remember the number of paragraphs, just look back at the top of the question. I know you can see it here, but it's A to F, right? So you know that the last paragraph is F. All right, absolutely. That's the conclusion. Yeah, ideally, you're not searching for the introduction and the conclusion for these types of questions, because you really should know what the introduction is about and what the conclusion is about. If you don't clearly understand what the introduction is about, you're kind of in trouble, okay? All right, number 34, the origins of tone correction software. I remember it was something in the 1990s, right? I remember, so this is a pretty clear date there, in the 1990s. Carolina says number 34 is B. Fadhil agrees, yeah. Okay, cool. So that's how you do those questions. Now, I'm not going to rush through the multiple choice and the true, false, not given questions right now. We'll look at how to solve those kinds of questions in class maybe later this week or next week, okay? However, I do challenge you to answer those questions and send them to me by email. So send your answers to me, members, by email. We'll also post the correct answers into our Discord chat as well, so that you can go over them. But maybe before we do that, try to solve them in Discord yourselves, so help each other, okay, with these. Some of you know a little bit more about these than others, so you can even teach each other, okay? It's a great way to improve. Teaching is an excellent approach to learning, okay? So 35, 36, 37, multiple choice. Do those on your own, and then these three true, false, not given questions, do those on your own. You have them there. You can come back, look at the end of the video to find them again, okay? So Carolina is really good helping out in the Discord group as well, so maybe she can... Yeah, exactly, Carolina. One teaches, two learn. That's a beautiful saying. I'll use that in the future. Okay, cool. So that's it for today's reading. There's a lot of content that I gave you there. It was quite a heavy, quick class. You can also send your answers to me, adrian@aehelp.com, and I'll send you back the answer key for those questions, okay? So that's it for now, but I will be back in 30 minutes, roughly, with another class where everybody will be able to join the chat. That will be true, false, or sorry, that will be true, false, not given. No, that will be a listening section. So we're going to do listening parts 1 and part 2 from one of our exams. So come back for that. It's always good to listen, to practice. Even if you've heard or have done these exams before, it's good to go over them again and just get more insight, more clarity. So hopefully you'll come back and join me in about 30 minutes. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from beautiful Victoria here in Canada for now, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.